Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. So I was very inspired by Amy from A-Star Reads. We did a buddy read together, and then we had a Zoom session about our feelings and talking about the book and kind of just getting to chat a little bit and get to know each other a little better than just like a little comment here and a little comment there. She kind of inspired this video because she's like, oh, I really want a book that's gonna make me just cry. So I have a list of 13 books right here that will destroy you. So Amy, if you're watching, I hope this helps you. But you know, this goes for everyone. These books are emotional, gut-wrenching, bring on the tears type of books. I am a very emotional reader. I'm a very emotional person too, you know, in general, but I'm a very emotional reader, and I like books that are gonna like tug at my heart, and these are some of my favorite ones that do just that. So let's get into it. So the first one is A Dog's Purpose by W. Bruce Cameron. I'm pretty sure I've talked about this book before. There is a movie version that is really, really good for this book. And I don't say that about a lot of books, but you follow Bailey, who is this dog. And basically, Bailey teaches you about empathy, even though Bailey is a dog. It's the most, like, human book that I've ever read from a dog's perspective, and I understand it's written by a human. But it teaches me about empathy and about humanity. And, like, for me, I honestly read this at the worst time possible. So if you're dealing with the loss of a pet, if something has happened to your pet recently, please don't read this right away. Wait. But this is such an amazing emotional book. You follow this dog named Bailey who basically gets reborn as different dogs, and each dog that he is reborn as has a different purpose, and you get to know him and you get to love him every single time, and it's a really good time, but it's also just, it made me a sobbing mess. This is Hate List by Jennifer Brown. This has like all the trigger warnings. There's triggers for bullying. Essentially what it is it's a young adult hard-hitting contemporary that follows the aftermath of a school shooting. I didn't mean for anyone to die is the tagline, and you kind of get what led up to the shooting and who did it and why. And this book has a special place in my heart because, well, I'm a teacher for one, but for two, you follow these kids who are having a hard time in life, and there are things going on at school that you have to read to find out, but like no one is helping them, and they take things into their own hands, and hence a school shooting. But like, I never condone something like this, like, no, but it made me feel empathy for the people that were involved in the shooting. And like, So if you want a book that is going to show you that maybe life isn't just black and white, like, oh, you know, maybe there's a story there, maybe there's more than meets the eye. If you want a book that is going to wreck your soul, Hate List, Jennifer Brown. And then I have Far From You by Tess Sharp. And while we're talking about this one, we will talk about the other one. The other one is Heroine by Mindy McGinnis. Both of these are young adult, hard-hitting contemporaries. Both of them follow a main character who has a drug addiction and struggles with it every single day. I think the stronger of the two is Far From You, because she's not only dealing with her drug addiction and becoming clean, but she's also dealing with grief and the loss of her best friend. And there's a lot in here in this little book, but there's something about the death of her best friend that people have blamed her for, and that's all you need to know. So she's struggling with a lot of grief, a lot of guilt. She's struggling with staying clean from heroin. And in Heroine by Mindy McGinnis, the main focus is the drugs and how it rips your life apart. So, I mean, they are both very, very good. I give them both 5 stars, but I would recommend Far From You more than I would Heroine. Okay, and then this is the only book I've ever, like, tabbed, and I mean, look how much I tabbed it. I read this in one night. This is Rescue by Michael Heath. I won a copy of this on Goodreads, and the author sent it to me. And I started corresponding with the author, so he sent me another book that I need to read. But I had plans the night that I started reading this, and there's something about his writing that just pulled me in instantly. You follow from 4 different perspectives. There's a Chihuahua that was born in a puppy mill, a Corgi who's at a rescue shelter. You follow this Roger. Is his name Roger? It's been a little bit since I've read this, a couple of months, but I think there's a man named Roger who is a felon and a pit bull that gets neglected and left outside all the time. And it's the story, this like incredibly heartwarming, tender story about these 4 different characters and how their lives converge together. It is so sad, and some of the imagery, like, I can never get out of my head. I was just crying. I could not stop myself from crying and finishing the book in one sitting. I mean, I guess technically 2, because about halfway I got up and went to the bathroom and came back, but I don't really think that counts. If you want a beautiful, heart-wrenching story that's just going to make you sob, there's nothing better than Rescue by Michael Heath. Then this one, you guys are probably going to say I'm like a cliche, but it's okay. The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. Everyone knows what this book is, unless you've been living under a rock for the past like 10 years. There was a really big movie about this, but essentially you follow Hazel Grace, who is terminally ill with cancer, and she goes to this support group. Sorry if my camera moves. My hamster's over there in his ball, so you have been warned. But she goes to this support group for cancer patients that are dying, and that starts like the best adventure of her life. And it is sad. It makes me super emotional, but I think the reason that I love it so much is because I can connect to it on a whole different level that a lot of people can't connect to it. And then another really big one years ago was If I Stay by Gail Forman. I was late to the party on this one. I didn't read it till the last couple of years. I really, really enjoyed this, but it's about this family that gets in this car accident. And this girl, Mia, is her name Mia? I think her name is Mia. I'm not good with names, but she is in this coma in the hospital, and she's kind of stuck between life and death, and it is a lot about what happened leading up to this accident, and it's about like her family and her friends and her support system and just her life leading up to it. But you also get the flashes of being in the hospital and everyone being around her and what's going on now versus how they got where they were, and it was really good. It did make me cry. All of these made me cry. Okay, the next one is yet another young adult, hard-hitting contemporary. This is By the Time You Read This, I'll Be Dead by Julie Ann Peters. You follow Delaney, who has tried to commit suicide 5 times, I think. And the last time she severed her vocal cord. And this is the aftermath of that. She signs on to this website, The End of Light, throughthelight.com. And you get some chapters that are her exploring in like this website, this blog, that is basically going to help her essentially kill herself. And they're going to give her a timeline of when to do it, how to do it, and everything like that. And this time she's determined not to fail at committing suicide. And it is so hard to read at times because you get the chapters of her planning it, but you also get the chapters of what led her to want to do that, and then also kind of what else is going on in her life. And it was just like Delaney and I became best friends, and I just didn't want to put this book down. I have One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Okay, so this, I have to say, I was not expecting to love this book, but I did. I absolutely adored this book, and I didn't even know what I wanted to happen because you follow Emma and Jesse as they fall in love in high school, they get married, and then he takes a business trip and he dies on this said business trip. His body is never found, and 3 years later, Emma has moved on with her life. It took her a long time, but she has a fiance now, and she's trying to mend her broken heart when Jesse walks back into her life. And like, it was so heart-wrenching because on one end you get Sam and Emma's story, and Sam is so sweet and so good for Emma, and you're like rooting for them. But then Jesse walks back into her life, and Jesse and Emma were together in high school, and they fell in love, they were married, and then he went missing. They thought that he died. And like, neither Sam nor Jesse did anything wrong. But you can't, and like, Emma had to figure out, like, does she want to try and make it work with Jesse? Because, like, that was so overwhelming and exciting that he was not dead. Like, what? And, if that trip never happened, they would probably still be together. But then you have Sam and Emma, and they're just like so perfect together. And he's like, I know that you had a husband before me and a love before me. It's okay if I'm not your first choice, if I'm your, you know, you're gonna be my one true love forever, but if I'm not the same for you, it's okay. And then it was just, oh, this book made me so distraught. And I read it during my 30 books in 30 days challenge. I couldn't pick up a book for 2 days, so that really put a damper on things for me. I absolutely loved this book. Like, it is probably going to be a new favorite of mine. We have How to Fail at Flirting by Denise Williams. So I thought that this was just going to be a fun adult romance. It is that, but it's so much more. Actually, one of the problems that Amy and I were talking about for romance books is that, like, it seems so made up, and like it seems so artificial, and like the romance doesn't always seem real. And with those kind of books, you can definitely tell that it's just like, and it gives you unrealistic expectations in romance. This book does not. This book follows Jake and, what is the girl's name? Naya? Is her name Naya? I don't remember. I think it's Naya. But Jake and Naya have this relationship that is, you know, you see it from page 1. They're starting out their relationship, but Naya is very blocked off. She's got a wall up. She's got all her walls up, and she's just like, I don't want love. Not to say that she would never want love, but she was in a very bad relationship with her ex-boyfriend, and it's just hard for her to ever think about romance like that again, at least not right now in her life. And Jake is trying to push through all those walls, and you kind of see the aftermath of some of the things that her ex-boyfriend did to her, and how it really did damage her. Like, it felt real, because like that's real life stuff. Life isn't always sunshine and rainbows all the time, and this book is like a perfectly balanced ooey gooey romance at parts, but it's so much more than that. I would definitely check the trigger warnings for this one, because there are a lot of trigger warnings, or a lot of triggers. I was not expecting, I was just expecting like a fluffy romance. This is not that book. If you are looking for a fluffy romance, that is not this book. Don't pick this book. Wait until you're in a better mental health state for this book. It's damaging. Now we have my 3 book of the month books. So we have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, although at this point I'm sure everyone has read this book already. I gave it 5 stars originally, but I've been really wondering if maybe it's more of a 4-star for me. I might have to reread it and find out. Actually, you follow Addie LaRue, who was supposed to get married. She runs away from her wedding to find this demon. We'll call him a demon. Is he really a demon? No. Probably not. Maybe he's a god. I would say she found this god who, or this devil, I don't know. She found someone like that who basically was like, oh yeah, you can live forever, but what he didn't tell her was that everyone would forget her. So you follow her for 300 years where everyone forgets her. But then someone remembers her, and that starts a whole new adventure. And then Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. The best way I can describe this is it talks a lot about mental health. So make sure that your mental health is in check. There's talks about suicide, but mainly what this book is about is a bank robbery that doesn't happen and a hostage situation that is not what it seems. And I know that sounds very cryptic, but if you've read this, then you know what I mean. And lastly, I have All the Ugly and Wonderful Things by Bryn Greenwood. So this one will mess you up. Before I tell you the synopsis of this, don't just disregard this book just because the synopsis sounds terrifying or like terrible. Like, I almost didn't read this because the synopsis sounds so bad. Like, no, not bad, but so wrong. There are so many things that are so wrong in this book. And somehow it was all right, but it messed me up. And there's a reason it got Book of the Year in 2016. So please read it if you haven't. But you follow Wavy. Yes, her name is Wavy, I think. Yeah. You follow Wavy when she's, I think you meet her when she's 12, and she lives in a very diabolical household where her parents are not fit to be parents. They are drug addicts, and they don't take care of her. So she ends up taking care of her baby brother, and then she meets this guy who, Donald. She meets Donald, who is her stepdad's friend, but he's like 22, I think, at the start of this book. And Wavy and Donald become friends, and then they become something more. But it's not like they just start a relationship like that. Like, he does everything right to most of an extent. Like, he doesn't do anything with her until she's of legal age, but so much other stuff happens in this book, and it's just so, it just really gets into your soul. So if you need a messed up book that's gonna make your head spin, sorry, that was Simon, and that's gonna just make you bawl your eyes out, please. So those are all of my recommendations for helping you become a sobbing mess. So if for some reason you want an emotional book right now and you just want to cry your eyes out, though, that is where I would start. Well, yeah, that is where I would start, because those are all amazing books. Highly, highly recommend all of them. And if they don't make you cry, I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do if they don't make you cry, but like, they are guaranteed to make you cry. They made me cry. So I'll see you guys later. Bye.